call the special call meeting to order. Tuesday, October the 23rd, 2007 at 5:50 p.m. Councilwoman Bell is present, Vice Mayor Losner, Councilwoman Garner, and Councilman Porter. Mr. Attorney?
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing and approving the issuance of the City of Homestead, Florida Industrial Development Revenue Bonds, Lincoln Marquis Community Agency projects in one or more series or one or more times in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $105 million to finance or refinance the cost to A, acquire and equip certain school facilities projects by Lincoln Marquis Community Council, Inc., to fund the debt service reserve fund for the Series 2007 bonds, to fund certain working capital, whoever typed this is very close together. Certain working capital requirements with respect to the project, to fund certain bonds and to pay certain costs of issuance of the Series 2007 bonds, and authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of an indenture of trust, authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of a mortgage and loan agreement, authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of a bond purchase agreement, authorizing and approving distribution of preliminary limited offering memorandum and final limited offering memorandum, authorizing and approving lease agreement, authorizing and approving management agreement, authorizing officers and authorized representatives to do and promote other acts necessary things required to effectuate the sale and issuance of the Series 2007 bonds, and the execution and delivery of the documents described herein and providing for an effective date.
Could you read that again?
I'll tell you, the words that start jumping around on this.
I'll move the resolution.
Been properly moved by Councilwoman Bell. Is that second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Porter. Any question? Any questions? If not, roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gardner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That concludes the special call. Thank you all.
Mayor, I'm sorry, you went through so quickly. My name is John Rodstrom with Wachovia, and I just wanted to raise an issue just to make sure that we understand the terms of this agreement, because a few minutes ago it was represented to us by your financial advisor that the deal has changed and that it's no longer $150,000, it's $150,000, and the city is seeking an additional $150,000 annual fee. And that's something that we're not prepared to agree to, and we wanted to resolve that right now, because if we can't resolve it, we can't go forward. And honestly, Mayor, nothing like this has ever happened to me in my career of 25 years, to come into a chamber like this and be told something that's other than what you've been represented all along with your client. But in the spirit of compromise, we would be agreeable to pay the city an annual fee commensurate with the fee that's paid to Dade County Industrial Development Authority. That we would be willing to do. But $150,000 a year is just so far off the charts, so far out of the realm of reasonableness. The city doesn't have any active role in this deal once the bonds close. The city's only involvement would be should someday, if this deal did not perform and defaulted. But again, the city has no liability. But I think it's really important for us and for my clients to know where you stand on this issue, because if it's a $150,000 annual fee, this is something that we're not prepared to go forward with, and it's not part of our agreement with the city.
Let's see what Dick has to say about it.
This is interesting.
Dick Montalbano, Financial Advisor for the city. The resolution that you've approved today clearly states, it has a proviso that the closing of this transaction will not occur until the city receives a written report from RBC Capital Markets as your financial advisor. We've had very, very successful discussions with Wachovia over the last several weeks as we did our due diligence, and we will be submitting a pretty comprehensive report when we conclude. The most significant items is that yesterday afternoon we received updated cash flow projections. The Wachovia has agreed with our recommendation that the transaction should be downsized. The downsize right now is approximately $81.5 million. They also agreed with us as it relates to several of the structuring aspects on the transaction, the technical aspects of how the debt service calculations would be computed each year. They also agreed with our recommendation last week that the transaction was structured as a 30-year financing with interest only for 10 years, and we felt that was way too long, and that has been restructured to interest only for 3 years, and then to start amortizing, and then all the tests are based on average annual debt service, which would reflect the amortization of principal and not just the way it was previously done, as it was the annual payment, which in the first several years would be lower. John is correct in his statement that I've just presented this to him. I'd also like to go on the record that I also asked John, since given the delegation, to please call me tomorrow. I threw out a number with absolutely no direction from the city, but as a starting point, since I've had several conversations with both the city's city attorney and your special counsel, and other transactions of this nature do have an annual debt service. When this was first presented to you, and I stood up here with John like we're doing tonight, before we came up, I said, I requested consideration for an annual payment, and Wachovia and Mr. Demetrius Jr. said, realize that these properties are tax exempt because they are facilities run for a not-for-profit school, and we don't pay any property taxes. And so with that, I backed off. But as we had not seen any of the pro formas, had not gotten into the complexity of the transaction. This is a high-yield transaction. We do feel that there should be some level of compensation to the city on an ongoing basis in the future. I thought I made myself clear to John that to call me tomorrow so that we could discuss it. I think the proposal of paying the city the fee commensurate with what Miami-Dade charges would be appropriate. I'd like to see that, since I haven't done an IDB through Dade County, since they don't do non-rated deals. I'd like to see what that fee is. But I think, that's not a deal breaker. I think the deal breaker would be, and the reason that we feel strongly about the recommendation to approve it tonight, subject to our final approval, is to allow Wachovia to start talking to the institutional investors. This will be done so to accredited investors, which are financial institutions that will be buying these in a bond size of no less than $250,000, signing an investment letter that they are taking on all the risk of doing their own due diligence, that they are buying these bonds for their own portfolio, not to be resold to the public, and that they are sophisticated investors of these type of securities and can take the financial risk of a loss. I know from my own experience, having done similar type transactions, that you can't get financial institutions seriously looking at the transaction. You saw the massive amount of documents and the supporting pro formas, unless they know that the issuing body, the city in this case, has approved and is supportive. And so with that, what you have approved is these documents in substantially the final form, subject to RBC's final written recommendation, and that written recommendation will evolve as we continue to receive some additional information that we've requested, such as, among other things, appraisals. Those appraisals are still not completed, and we think that's one of the important aspects of our project. So my recommendation to John is, I think we're all reasonable people, and the authorization is subject to our report, that we're not going to recommend it tonight and then kill it over a difference of some number that's less than $150,000. But I apologize if I made you think it was an absolute number, but I clearly said, please call me tomorrow, give me some suggestions.
I could just say, if you had said 10,000 and I was willing to offer 5, I could understand that. But 150,000 and I'm offering 5, I'm clearly not in the same pew. And so, if I can't resolve this tonight, then I feel we're going to have a hard time resolving this tomorrow, Dick, in all due respect. So that's why I felt I needed to really bring this before the council, because we made a deal. The client has an expectation of what this transaction looks like. That's why I represented to the client. And furthermore, we were also told tonight that we were going to be required to cover Squire Sanders' bill, which was not part of my original deal, but I've spoken to your city attorney, and we will cover that deal out of bond closing funds so the city can get their entire $150,000. So we're agreeable to that. But I would just like to know when I walk out of here that if we do everything we're supposed to do, that we'll have a transaction that will come to a successful conclusion.
you know what that amount is for under Dade County Farm?
I do not, but whatever it is, we'll pay it on an annual fee. I do know, I don't want to just say to you some number, but I am under the opinion that the upfront fee in Dade County is less than the fee that we're paying the city, but nevertheless, we're paying you the $150, and we'll pay you whatever that fee is in Dade County. That annual fee, we'll be happy to pay you.
I'm sorry that you're going through this level of detail. The reason that this came to the city is that the Dade County Industrial Development Authority, just as a matter of policy that's been there since the 70s, does not do high-yield, non-rated transactions. So most of these transactions will always go through a municipal issuer. There are 34 schools that are being financed. One is in Homestead. It could just as easily have been taken to any one of the other municipalities which would be willing to do this transaction. It makes sense. The city has done these in the past, and again, I continue to recommend. But the reason that the Dade County's fee is lower is that they don't do high-yield financings.
So there's some agreement that, Dick, that tomorrow morning you all will work it out, and if we have to, and if it can't be worked out, we can call another special call and work it out. But I'm hoping that with your conversation tomorrow, that or before the week is out, that you'll come to some conclusion of what that number would be.
I would think so. You've got two reasonable professionals standing before you. I'm surprised that it wouldn't be worked out. And then we'll report back to the city manager for approval before we agree to anything.
That's fine. Do you have a problem with that?
The professionals that have been involved in this deal have hundreds and hundreds of hours into this transaction, and I guess it's just my conservative nature, but I like to know that everything is nailed down and nothing is left to chance. And I just feel that once I leave this room, that I'm leaving things to chance, and I would like to know your thoughts on it. And if you could give direction to staff, that would be very helpful for me to know what your thinking is, and then I'll govern myself accordingly.
Well, I would certainly direct the manager and Dick to get with you guys as soon as possible, so you guys could work it out. And if another meeting at our level is required, we could call that meeting. But I think once y'all sit down and work it out, shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else? Congratulations to both parties, and Mr. Manager and your staff and the attorneys. Any other business? If not, the special call.
Pardon me?